conductive wire, and you were so electric. I had no say when you came so near and just passed right through me.
Hey everyone, welcome to Geekdom is Back. I'm your host, Deanna Chapman, and today I am joined by Margot Carlson. Once again, it's been a minute.
Hello.
We're not talking robots today, sadly.
Sadly, very sadly. It's my go-to option.
But we are talking Rosemary's Baby, which apparently is your second go-to option.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a fucked up movie, and it turns out I enjoy those very selectively.
My entire Letterboxd review was, I hate how much I love this.
Okay, but that is exactly right, Deanna. I'm excited to discuss exactly that problem, right?
Yeah, basically what I did for the listeners, I went to Margot's Letterboxd, and I was like, I want to do an episode with Margot one last time. What are her favorite movies? And I was like, oh, hello.
And you hadn't seen it before, right?
Right. I had not seen this before. It had been on my list for a while just because I like horror, terrible things. I cannot watch a comedy. That's my thing. I can't laugh.
I can't laugh.
But not at any of the right things.
That's so funny. I do feel that Rosemary's Baby is on a lot of people's lists. Like, it's a lot of like, oh, I'll get to it someday.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of that has to do with Polanski now. And it's just like, you know what? Maybe I'm not in a hurry. But I recently watched Chinatown and also hated how much I loved that. So I was like, God,
that is an amazing film.
It's the worst when terrible people are amazing at their jobs.
Well, I mean, I can launch into my feeling about Roman Polanski's, like, how I feel like his relationship to this film affects the film, because I feel like we're dancing around that, and we can
do. My brain's not working, so please use yours.
I feel like that, we can talk about the elephant in the room, and then we can talk about all the fun stuff. So the elephant in the room, obviously, being that Roman Polanski is a pedophile, rapist, abuser, and also a filmmaker that made some movies that are critically acclaimed. One of them is Rosemary's Baby, which is one of my favorite movies. And I feel, and look, this is like personal subjective opinion, I feel like you probably relate to it based on your Letterboxd review, Deanna. But I feel like this is a movie that is about the experience of being subjected to gaslighting and abuse. And specifically, like, even more so, I feel that it is a movie that is like a horror film about the experience of like rape culture and patriarchy and being a woman subjected to like systemic and targeted abuse by men. Yeah. And what makes the movie so effective is how realistically and horrifically it depicts that experience. And I think this is a horror movie that the horror of it is compounded and increased by the knowledge that the creator not only subjected women to that experience, but also so apparently knows what, like, understands and empathizes with what that experience is from the victim's point of view enough to successfully make this movie.
It makes your head hurt.
Yeah. It's like, so this is a guy who not only abuses women and girls, but knows how it feels. Like, can imagine intimately what that must feel like for the woman involved, and has made art about it that's really good. And that makes it, like, I think the best horror movie ever, because it's horrible.
Especially for this time period too, because it's different now where people are actually being believed about things that are happening to them.
Yeah.
Still not often enough. But with this one, what is it, 1968? That sounds like so long ago.
A long time ago, yeah.
And it's playing on the stereotype of, oh, this woman is just hysterical. Mm-hmm. Which, not to say she isn't, because she definitely is at times. But for good reason.
Yeah. As is so frequently the case, women don't go crazy for no reason. Unless they do.
I might, but that's different. That's different. But the way that Mia Farrow plays this character too. First, I barely recognized her because I've only seen her like more recently, like in her 60s and 70s.
She's such a doll.
And I was just like
she's so porcelain and
who
perfect.
is this?
Right?
I was like, this cannot be the same person, but it is. And she's great. And for the most part, I didn't really recognize a whole lot of other people in the cast except for Elisha Cook Jr. From, I want to say, oh God, what was he in? The House on Haunted Hill?
Sure.
I have no idea. My brain is just like, mm-mm. Oh yeah, no, he was in House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price.
Oh, okay. Amazing. Ruth Gordon, who plays the horrible pink-haired old woman in this movie, she is also the star of the film Harold and Maude. She's Maude. And that's another just incredible, a movie I recommend very strongly. And she plays a great character in that. And I feel that John Cassavetes, the husband, is like so charming and lovable, even though he's such a fucking monster in this movie.
Yeah, because he's like, no, it's my fault. And men don't do that. Not men like him.
But it's also like, there is a type of man who is abusive and knows that about himself and just sort of like feels bad about it but doesn't change. It's a very specific type of guy who's like, oh, I'm such an asshole. I treat women so badly. I wish I was different. And then just...
here's some roses.
Yeah, just keeps doing it.
I have to say, I really love the setting of this movie, though. Because I love good, big, creepy houses. I know these are technically like apartments, but that building in New York, perfect.
Stunning. I love the high ceilings. I love that they're like... They've moved into it and they're like renovating it and painting it. There's such a feeling of like they're trying to make a home out of this. I also think there's like a very specific type of the same type of horror like that we get ghost stories from, that we get haunted houses from, of like I read this history of like British haunted house fiction and how people like landed gentry in the UK used to have like property, and then they used to have like lots of land surrounding their house. And once more and more people started to move into neighborhoods and cities where they might even share walls with each other, this like specter of like a memory that lives in the house, a dead person that's left over, started to enter fiction because people were hearing like people move around in like outside their building, above them, below them, on either side of them. And it was this clustered feeling of like, I'm being observed, I'm being watched, like there's someone here that I don't know about. And I feel like that same energy is so present in this movie, where even though it's not ghosts, it's like the neighbors are making me so claustrophobic. Even though the house itself is so big and spacious, the apartment is so spacious, but they're like, people are encroaching on all sides.
Yeah, there's a moment where Rosemary's in the basement doing laundry and, you know, she meets one of the other tenants and they just hear like this noise, but because it's a basement, they just kind of let it go. Like looking back on it, you're just like, yeah, you should have seen this coming. And then like finding this big, what was it, like this giant armoire in front of a closet door and then moving it.
It's a bad
and then
sign,
there's like hidden doors behind. It's like, come on. But I love stuff like that. Like I love the Psycho House.
Right.
It's just hard not to.
I love a secret passageway.
And we've both lived on the East Coast. And I don't know if you lived in any particularly old buildings, but when I was at college in Philly, my off-campus apartment sophomore year through whenever I was done was like this old Victorian twin house with those very high ceilings, very large windows, until you get the mice and cockroaches included, and then you're like, less so.
Let's get a new building.
You could tell, like, yeah, you could tell it was obviously renovated because they didn't have rooms separated off like that. Like it wasn't apartments before, and they had like the very narrow stairs. Oh yeah. And 2 sets of storm doors. Oh, so wow. It was just like there was so much noise going on in that building all the time. So
very haunted.
Because you had the front door You had a set of storm doors, you had the mailboxes and the door to the first apartment, and then another set of like giant thick storm doors.
Oh my gosh.
And then you could go inside the rest of the building.
What a fortress.
The basement was creepy.
I bet.
The basement was creepy. There was nothing down there. The whole entire like backyard was just like overgrown weeds and who knows what was crawling back there.
Oh my God.
It was very like creepy Victorian East Coast thing.
I love that. I really love that. I want a witch to live in that house. I hope that you moved out and a witch moved in. I think she would really make something special out of that place.
Yeah. But to go back to your point about the neighbors, you have that moment where she's in the house and she's locked the door and locked everyone out. And then you just see them in the background.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh, this is where It Chapter 2 got this from.
Well, I feel like Hereditary takes so much, like pays so much homage to Rosemary's Baby for so many reasons. Obviously, like being gaslit is a big part of that movie. And
hysterical women
that aren't believed. And this thing of like creepy people like just suddenly being there and having been there the whole time or having known how to get in the whole time. Like people conspiring against you is one of the most horrible feelings. There's like a trope in fiction that I think is really interesting that's been called the Cassandra Complex before. Cassandra is a Greek like historical fictional figure during the Trojan War who was cursed with, she basically, Apollo really wanted to fuck her. She was like, no, you're not gonna fuck me, I refuse. And he was like, fine, I'm gonna give you this curse. And he cursed her with the ability to see the future but have no one believe her. And so she proceeded to predict the fall of Troy during the Trojan War, and no one believed her. And then she was brutally raped and died in the story of the Iliad. And I think like throughout history, this figure of this woman who like sees the truth and is trying to get people to believe her, and no one ever will until it's too late and she's punished for it, is like a tale as old as fucking time itself. Very, very much a realistic type of character that we see. I mean, #believe women. Like women are often telling the truth and are not believed and have to face the consequences of that. And I think this is like a prime example of just like the torment of that made into an amazing fictional story.
Yeah, and you can see how many movies pull from this one now that I've seen it, because I also recently watched Suspiria.
Oh, I love
And there's that whole section of the movie where she goes and gets books on witchcraft.
I was literally about to say, I was like, as I was driving home from work, I was like, okay, the part when she like is talking about all them witches, is that in Suspiria or is that this movie? Because I know both of them involve like going to a professor and finding out information about a cult.
Yep.
About a coven.
That happened in Suspiria too. Because I was watching that movie and that scene stood out to me because when I talked to my friend about this, I did an episode on it. I don't know what time it is, like 5 episodes ago, 12 episodes ago, who knows? But I was talking to my friend Alex about this and he was like, oh, that scene probably stood out to you because the mouths didn't match, because like one person was speaking English and one was like speaking Italian or something.
Weird.
Which happened a lot in Italian horror films. So I was like, I was paying more attention to that scene in particular because I was so confused for a second. I was like, is this movie in English or is it in Italian? Like I can't tell.
I mean, in your defense, I feel like that movie, that scene in Suspiria is so absolutely out of left field compared to the rest of the plot of Suspiria. Like it's one of the only scenes
it's just
outside
so, like,
of the
dull.
Yeah. It's like she leaves this like place that feels like it's the entire location of the movie and has like a normal human interaction with someone who does believe her and does validate her. And then she goes back into like the vortex. And the same thing happens here. Like I think
with Hutch.
Yeah, like to our point about how this is such a good, like, incredible depiction of like the torment of gaslighting. I feel like that in both of these movies, the like absolute relief of finding someone who's like, you might be right, maybe I can help you, and then the loss of that being taken away is so real here.
I feel like Suspiria is basically this movie with ballet instead of a baby.
Ballet,
because it's also in a big creepy building.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's also like scary old people. There's also a conspiracy. Yeah. I also, you know, I recently watched the Stepford Wives for my podcast, Botcast.
Everyone go listen to it.
And that is another movie where she like leaves Stepford, goes and gets therapy, and the therapist is like, you should take your kids and leave because you're clearly like not safe. And she goes back and is like immediately stuck again.
Is that also based on a book by Ira Levin?
I think it might be. Do I not know what books are by Ira Levin?
It is.
It is?
It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
So really at the end of the day, Ira is the one who understood the experience of being a woman.
Yeah, I mean, that tracks.
I think if we're giving credit to Roman Polanski, we should really give credit to our king, Ira Levin.
I was reading something about how this is sort of Ira Levin's like commentary on Christianity.
Oh yeah. Like
as
Son
a
of
Jewish
Christ.
person?
Yeah, I like that. That's really interesting. Yeah.
I just made that up in my head. One of the two, who knows? I don't know.
Wait, tell me more about this reading. That's really interesting.
That was all I remembered.
I like it. I do think that Christianity, okay, soapbox moment. It's a bit of a cult. It's a little all-encompassing and uber controlling, so that feels right.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was like a tweet from someone or an article. I don't know. I wish I could tell you, but I don't.
It's okay.
I really don't know. I might have just made that up.
I like it as a theory. And if it's your theory, I think it's really smart.
But anyway, so the devil.
How do you feel about the ending? Like her decision to give in?
Okay, I want to backtrack a little because the way that baby was rocking that baby carriage thing, I was just like, I was half expecting the baby to just like come flying out and attack someone.
Oh my god. Yeah, it was getting its groove on for sure.
I was like, what is this woman doing? Also, I think it was the same woman who sat on her book when she came to visit earlier.
Oh my god.
And I was just like, please don't do that to books. I don't like you. That was when I knew I wasn't going to like that character.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, no. You do not sit on someone's book while it is open or closed. This is what I've learned from Rosemary's Baby.
You never
don't trust people who sit on books.
It means you're a bad person. And you're going to rock a devil baby way too hard.
I feel like I'm laughing way more than I should while we're talking about this movie.
One thing, okay, as long as we're on the topic of silly thoughts about this movie, I think that chocolate mousse looks so yummy. You know the chocolate mousse that she's fed that makes her like fertile and like it like roofies her? It looks, I like good. Want to eat it.
I mean, Guy likes it.
Mm-hmm. The fact that this man's name is Guy.
That always throws me off. Like, I know there are a lot of people actually named Guy, but I'm just like, who thought that was a good idea? Who started this?
I also love that he's like an aspiring performer, like an aspiring actor, right?
Yeah.
And he's like trying to make it in the arts.
It's weird because like he's given luck because someone who had the part that he wanted goes blind.
Right.
It's just like, okay. So then you're just like, all right, who's pulling the strings here? Because at the end, to go back to the ending, you know, he just like goes in the other room and hides.
Yeah.
So I was like, did he want this or was he just going along because it was working out for him?
I think that's exactly it. Like, I think that's back to what we were talking about earlier about how like this type of shitty guy who like isn't like actively trying to cause harm, but likes the feeling of power and likes how it feels to get what he wants.
And success. Yeah.
So he will like hurt the person he's with or the people around him and then like feel bad about it, but will still do it because it still gets him what he wants. This is such a common type of shitty boyfriend or shitty husband or just shitty dude. And I feel like, so much of his character is like, you know, like I wouldn't start a devil worshipping cult, but as long as one is nearby and I'm benefiting from it, it is really a very similar character to the husband character in Stepford Wives, where he's like, you know, I wouldn't like start turning women into robots, but as long as it's happening and I'm benefiting from it, I might as well join the party.
Yeah. It's like, well, it's not really hurting anyone. No one's dead. Well, except for Hutch, but...
Poor Hutch. I love a nice old man.
He's great. And I think with this too, like, as soon as we see the neighbors and they're walking up and they're all dressed fancy and the girl who's been staying with them is just like splattered on the sidewalk.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like they were maybe a little too over the top, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna like them. Like right away, I would have loved if that was a little bit more of a slow burn.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's like, it's shocking how annoying they are. They really do not shy away from being like unpleasant people.
But Guy can't see it, and I'm just like, why? Why men?
Right. I mean, that's part of like the like, oh my God, I'm going insane experience that Rosemary has is like, she is too polite and nice to set like a boundary of like, I don't want to be around these people and they're being nice, so I shouldn't say no to them. But they're so fucking annoying. And my like ally here doesn't see that, so I'm alone. And of course, then she thinks that she's a bad person for being the only person that thinks they're annoying. When to us, the audience, we're like, get away from them. They're so weird.
Yeah. And it seems like they've obviously acquired wealth over the years, the neighbors. Mm-hmm. But like Rosemary and Guy affording this place.
I know.
Because it was like pre-success.
Yeah. Sorry.
Because he had done what? I think she says at the beginning he had done a play and some TV stuff.
I am choosing to believe that he is a like trust fund kid. Like he inherited some wealth.
That's what
because that's the only
figured. In New York too. I mean, not that New York was nearly as expensive then, but that apartment takes up like what, half of the floor?
Oh my God.
That massive building?
That would be millions of dollars today.
Because that building takes up the entire block, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and there's a lot of lovely rooms in that beautiful house. Beautiful apartment.
Yeah, so even if it's just half a floor, and then like the neighbors are down the hall across the way or whatever it is, it's just so big. That's also so big for two people.
I know. Well, they're trying to have a third.
And fourth and fifth, I think they say at some point.
Oh, God. Ugh. It's fun, like, imagining if the devil hadn't been implanted in Rosemary's womb, like, what would they be as normal people? And obviously, like, the answer is just, like, unbelievably unhappy. Like, that guy is never going to be a good dad. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And then when she wakes up with all the scratches and he was like, oh, I don't worry, I clipped my nails now.
Oh my God.
And she was like, but I wasn't awake. Hello.
Again, this movie is so good. This movie is like, so it feels so feminist, even though it is so created by such a bad person. But it feels that way because like
the exact opposite person.
Yeah. And like, seeing a young woman in the 60s wake up like from a night where she got a little too out of it and had sex with her husband and woke up the next morning feeling like she had been assaulted is like such a new thing for the time and now. But like in the 60s, like marital rape was not a concept. Like it wasn't a thing. Like you are married, you can't be raped by your husband, you're married to him.
Right.
So the concept of like she woke up and she knew what had happened and she knew that it wasn't okay, that it was a violation, even if the devil wasn't involved. Like even if the devil wasn't involved, she woke up and was like, you like had sex with me when I was not conscious and I'm not cool with that. And his reaction is like, don't worry, like I'll cut my nails next time I have sex with you while you're asleep. It's just good. It's a good movie. It's really smart and I resent it.
Yeah. And then she kind of falls further into hysteria when she asks Guy, like, let me see your left shoulder or right shoulder. I forget which one it is. And he's just like, here you go. Here's both of them. And there's nothing there. So then she just feels like she's going even crazier. Mia Farrow was so good in this.
She's so good. I also love like the little like microaggressions throughout the movie when she gets her hair cut and he's like, ew. She's like, you know, she's trying to do one thing for herself to make her feel good. And he's like, grow it out. Yucky. And the old couple are like, it looks bad, but okay.
Yeah. And we haven't even talked about the doctor yet.
Oh my God. This fucking gynecologist.
This movie is such a slow burn that it just lets you sit with everything that's happening uncomfortably long. But it's so good.
What is the runtime on this movie?
I think it's 2 hours and 18 minutes.
Perfect length. No notes.
If this were like most other movies, there would be more notes on that runtime.
Exactly.
I usually have notes with that runtime, but this time it just worked so well. And to go back to the doctor, I was just like, how is this guy like a renowned doctor? And then you kind of start to find out, oh no, he's just like the doctor for this really, really small circle of creepy rich people.
Yeah. And he's just like poisoning her. Like, oh God.
But Ralph Bellamy plays the character so well.
He seems like kind of befuddled and harmless throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, kind of like a big buffoon almost.
Yeah.
With the doctorate, unfortunately.
I just realized I'm literally sitting in front of a Rosemary's Baby poster.
Amazing. See, we picked the perfect movie.
We love the movie.
I don't know what else to say about this. I really hate that I loved it so much.
Yeah, so tell me more about like your experience of watching it for the first time. At what point, like when you started it, knowing that I loved it, but also knowing that it's a Roman Polanski movie, did you start it thinking like, I'm going to probably like this and I'm going to hate it? Or what was like the journey for you?
Because I had semi-recently watched Chinatown as well, and I hated that I loved that. I was like, oh no, this guy is actually good at his job. Because as soon as I saw the setting, it's like when you go into, like I said, the Psycho house or the Exorcist house.
Yeah.
You just know. You're like, this is going to be a good movie because they picked the exact perfect location for it. Especially with stuff like this, because you just know everything's going to go wrong. And I love movies that mostly take place in a confined space.
Yeah, me too.
You know, we talked about how big this building is, and we see Rosemary in the basement. We see them in their apartment, in the neighbor's apartment, and we see them outside the building. And like Suspiria, it kind of takes you out of it a little when she goes elsewhere, like when she's at the doctor's offices or when she's, you know, in the phone booth, for instance. But the phone booth is still confined, so it worked because she couldn't escape.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like the one sort of the space that she can go to get a little bit of relief and respite is the doctor's office, which is also, he's also part of it. Like he's a part of the bad guys. So there's really nowhere that she can turn.
Even the other doctor, when she's like, I'm going to go back to the other guy that I went to the first time. And then he calls the other doctor. You're like, God, why?
I know. I know. I can't trust any of these assholes.
Only Hutch.
Only Hutch. And he had to fucking die.
Speaking of Hutch, what did you think of the funeral scene? Because that was also kind of out of place, too.
Remind me what happens in that scene.
Rosemary had placed a call to Hutch, and this woman answered, like, with a British accent or something. I don't know if it was British, but she answered the phone with an accent, and then Rosemary finds out that Hutch died and goes to the funeral, and the woman gives her the book.
Oh, right. I don't know. What do you feel about that scene?
It felt a little forced, like she had to go to the funeral just to get the book because like who brings a book to a funeral?
It's a little convenient, yeah.
As someone with lots of books, I get it. Even I wouldn't do that. So
yeah, that's fair.
And then Guy just throws it away. He's just like, you were getting too stressed out or whatever it was. It just throws it away.
You're getting stressed out, so I'm going to control you even more.
Yeah, and then she has to go to a bookstore and find another copy and gets another book. And I feel like maybe some of that stuff could have cut down on the runtime a little bit because
yeah, that's true.
It's like she had to get the book twice.
Right. I think it's effective that like she's starting to catch on. And he gets rid of her access to this knowledge, but sort of like throws it off as like, oh, you're just getting hysterical. I just wanted to calm you down. I'm just trying to like protect you and make you feel better. It's very coercive and like insidious the way that he like, you know, continues to gaslight her. So I feel like it's effective for that. But I feel like it would be if Hutch had just given her the book, and then the rest of that had happened without needing to like go to the funeral and get the book from this tertiary character. That would have been way more streamlined.
Because that's basically the only purpose that character served.
Plot character. Exposition character.
Yeah. And then there was that whole thing with Guy taking one of Hutch's gloves earlier.
Yeah.
Like, it was so weird. And it was hard to tell because like, Guy doesn't seem that smart.
No.
I don't think that's meant to be a stereotype on actors either, because I think you might be more familiar with some being in the film industry than I would be, but some of them are really smart.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're artists. I think this guy's just I mean, he's not a successful actor, so maybe there's a comment about that.
Right. But you see today how like so many of them subvert the stereotypes because they're either like super charitable or they have like 8 different companies that they run. Right. I don't know how Reese Witherspoon sleeps.
Oh my God, I know. She is a busy woman.
I truly don't. Like, I mean, she obviously has money to hire people. I do not. So I don't sleep, but that's fine. And, you know, Rosemary doesn't sleep either.
That's true.
Because she is smart enough to know that what she believes is going on is actually going on.
Yeah. Her strength of will and like ability to not give in to the compulsion to just like assume that she's going crazy. Yeah. She's a very strong person.
And you see her go and get the knife and go through the little secret door. And she just walks into that room holding the knife on.
It does make the ending all the more intense that after all of this like resistance, the whole movie, she ultimately is like, I can't fight it. I have to give in. It's very hopeless.
Yeah. Do you wish we would have seen the baby?
Such a good question. I think I do like that we don't, but I also I love a good character, a creature design, you know? So I'd be open to seeing the baby.
Yeah, I feel like it was a missed opportunity for a great creature effect. Especially because it would have been like the only one in the entire movie. It would have had more impact.
That's true.
I love good creature effects.
Truly, the movie is just vibes. Like, it's really... It's really just really dark vibes.
Yeah. It really is. And we love it. We hate that we love it.
And we love it. We do.
I'm going to have to make a letterboxd list that is, we hate that we love it.
Oh my God. And Chinatown is there as well. I think
Yes.
People talk about separating the art from the artist a lot with artists like Woody Allen and of course Roman Polanski. And I feel like back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of the podcast, like creators put themselves into the work that they create. And when you watch a Woody Allen movie, it's like so specifically him, and so much of the film and the story and the performances are about like this type of character that he has, and this person, this self-pitying abusive person that he is. And I do think that he makes some good art, but I think like factoring in these qualities of the person making the art does embellish the experience of watching their creation, for better or for worse. And I think here, like, it results in this experience of like, exactly as you've been saying, like, watching this makes me feel uncomfortable because it's so good, and I'm so uncomfortable with how good it is and how realistic it is. And that discomfort is like good art. I hate to say it.
That's also the whole point of horror too, as a genre.
Yeah.
It's to make you uncomfortable. And I think with movies, personally, it's a little easier to separate the art from the artist because a singular person does not make a movie.
That's true. And this is a film based on a book. And again, Ira is the man that deserves the most praise for this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Because it's like, if you tried to, for instance, avoid movies that Kevin Spacey is in.
Right.
Good luck. There's a lot of great movies that he's in, but it's not necessarily because of him.
Sure. And it's harder with like an auteur, like Roman or Woody.
Yeah.
This is not to say that I think that Roman Polanski should ever be allowed to move or breathe or make art again. I think he should rot in a cell somewhere.
I don't know why France wants to keep him, honestly. It makes no sense.
Yeah, no, like truly, he is like should not be allowed to communicate with other people for the rest of his life, I think. But of the, whatever. It's hard to consume art and separate your enjoyment of it from, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm defending myself for liking this movie.
Yeah, it's tough because I've, for my Stephen King podcast, I had to watch a Bryan Singer movie, and I was like, I understand now. This is much creepier than it probably would have been had I watched it before I knew everything.
Which movie?
Apt People.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
If you read the description of the movie, you will understand almost immediately.
Sure.
But it's just so infuriating when people who are terrible are good at their jobs.
Yeah. I mean, I think that someone who isn't a predator could make Rosemary's Baby perhaps even better. Perhaps a woman could make an incredible version of Rosemary's Baby. Like,
what if Karen Kusama did a remake?
I would love that. I think the material is incredible and the film is super good, but I don't think that any sort of hero worship surrounding the creator of the film needs to be a part of it, other than what we've discussed already of like watching it makes us feel very weird. And that's an interesting feeling as an audience member.
I think no matter who directed it, this would be an uncomfortable movie, but it's like extra uncomfortable because of who made it.
Exactly. And like that's an experience that I sort of had in reverse with movies like The Shining, where I like saw The Shining and loved it and cited it as a favorite movie. And then afterwards, like discovered about the making of the film and how abusive Kubrick had been to Shelley Duvall and like how horrible her experience was. And I do think that learning that adds a like colored lens to the experience of rewatching it
Yeah.
and thinking about it again of like, this is still an incredible movie. And it's also like yet another movie about a kind of psychological torment and abuse created by someone who was psychologically tormenting and abusing people involved.
Margot, I think we have a type. I'm sensing a pattern here.
I think we might have a problem, Deanna.
Because I love The Shining so much.
What do we do? What do we do with this? Listeners, write in. What do we do with this?
Don't know.
I know. I think like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm a pretty politically thoughtful person, but when it comes to like horror movies that I like, I just am like a simp. I can't help it.
Same. I guess we just need to decide we like John Carpenter movies, and that's it.
Oh yeah, that's easy. Give me a Carpenter, a
It's
Craven.
very
That's
easy.
can't go wrong.
Yeah, I can still watch Christine. That's fine. That can be my Stephen King movie.
That's a classic.
The Shining's so good.
I know, that's the thing. I'm looking at your Jack Nicholson in the corner again, making a little face at me.
That book weighs like 5 pounds. It is massive. You could murder someone with that book. We're not
Oh my
going
God.
to, though, but
No, not yet.
Margot?
Not yet. Maybe someday.
not yet. Might murder my back if I put it in a box and move it, but that's fine.
Huh.
Margot, any final thoughts here?
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so delightful. I really appreciate you like identifying a movie that you knew I would enjoy talking about and then watching it. That's very kind of you.
I looked and I was like, oh, that's on my list. We can do that. Because it's been on my list for a while. I'm like,
And I'm so glad.
I'm one of those people who likes to read the book first, and I did not do that.
No, I've never read it. I'm a terrible scholar. We're both bad people, Deanna. I think
Yes.
that's like
Yeah,
the thesis
that's
of
the
this
lesson.
episode of the podcast.
We are terrible. This movie's great.
Yeah. Mia Farrow's amazing.
And we're going to leave you all with that information to do what you will with it.
Exactly. We're putting each other and ourselves on blast in this episode.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's a good movie. Sorry.
I still feel like I laughed way too much during this episode
Good. I'm glad that we could keep the mood light.
with Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah. Thank you again for having me. This has been great.
Thank you for joining me.